If Trump's not allowed to freeze that money, then give it to Newsmax. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. I sympathize with the people that say there's a potential conflict of interest with Elon Musk and even
Sure.
Donald Trump being the people that are doing it. I talked to Fabian Scott about this yesterday. The problem is, because our system's so fucked up, it had to be people like them. Not because they're the best people from the job, but because it had to be independently wealthy people. And the characteristics to be independently wealthy are the same sort of characteristics that we would say we would write skepticism with them being the ones in charge. So unfortunately, when I was voting like crazy and trying to convince every one of my friends to vote for Ron Paul in 2008, it won't happen. It wasn't happening. And so it's going to take someone
Unfortunately.
like Trump to win with all of the good and the bad. And so that's who's there for better or worse. So it's a plus that they're auditing it. If I had my druthers, would it be other people spearheading? Probably. But it is what it is. So yeah, I support it. We'll see where you want to go from this, but I'll just say as an addendum, did you see today that Eggs said that they wanted to reduce yearly 20% the military budget?
It's based. So
Fucking
based.
great. Because
I knew that he was going to the Pentagon, and I was really hoping for something like that to happen.
well,
That is
because
awesome.
the criticism that I'm willing to have of Trump is like, okay, man, if you're going to go into USAID, taking the money out of USAID is good for reasons other than just saving us money, right? Because I believe that it's literally funding shit that are antithetical to my worldviews, that are causing harm to the world, right? So it's a difference between we gave $40 billion to this random lady in Connecticut who bought the world's coolest RV and takes photos all around, goes to ball games every day. Like, that's bad because it's wasteful, but that woman's not doing anything that fucking harms me, right? No, we're giving it to things like, promoting child transitioning.
It's a CIA front,
Correct,
basically.
right? That's the problem. But when it comes to just a shrinking the size of government business, if you're going to massively expand the size of the military budget while taking away USAID, you ain't doing shit. And so you need, as much as people don't want to hear this, right? The classic conundrum between the Republicans and this is how I explain to people I work with developmental issues that have like autism and other things. They have a right to vote. That's one of the things in Pennsylvania. It's beaten to your head. And I take that shit seriously. I take it very seriously. And so someone who maybe can't read, it doesn't matter. There might be people out there going, people like that shouldn't have a right to vote. They fucking do. So what's my role in this? I don't want to persuade them one way or the other. I don't want everyone else, everyone in the world, I'd be like, fucking A, man, vote for Trump. But so the way that I always try to say this, I go with the stereotypical, what is a Republican and what is a Democrat? And this is how I explain it. I say, you know how you like going to like some of the fun events we go? Democrats would have like more stuff like that. But when you get your paycheck, they're going to take more of your money. Republicans, there might be less stuff like that, but you get to keep more of your money to spend it on what you want. That's as my ethical consideration. That's as straight down the middle as I've been able to come. And I'll say this person's Republican and this person's Democrat. And that's how I try to do it. Having said that, no one has ever voted that I've worked with. But when they talk about potentially, that's what I tell them. The
Sure.
problem is Democrats always sell you this program, in theory, program, but we're not going to raise your taxes. And Republicans always go, we're going to cut your taxes, but not any of the programs either. The truth is, they're going to have to cut programs. That's the fucking truth. And they're going to have to cut programs that a lot of people would traditionally say we like. A lot of conservatives are big military people.
Yep.
You're going to have to cut it. You're going to have to. And DOGE is a clever way of being like, well, what about entitlements? Well, before you get to the conversation of cutting entitlements, what if we cut the fraud and waste? So if it turns out, hypothetically, that $5 billion a year are going to fraudulent Social Security payments, let's cut that. That's no-brainer, right? But you probably are still going to, at some point, have to have the difficult conversation of like, listen, the money's gone. What could we do? I didn't like Trump saying, yes, I like Trump saying, did you see what he said about we'll send people up to $5,000?
The dividend or whatever? Yeah.
I don't know what to think about
I don't know if that's legal. If it's legal, we should do it. It's pretty base.
Well, see, in spirit, I say yes, but then it's like, but with that, as fucked up as this is to say, because it's very difficult for me to ever say we should keep more of our money. I think that's good, right? Shouldn't we pay down the debt first? Shouldn't we balance the sheet first?
We should, but here's the consideration. I think, assuming it's legal to do this, which I don't know if it is, but assuming it's legal to do this, the idea of, okay, we've saved all this money, we can pay down the debt, right? there is the element here of popular support, right? There is the element of if everybody gets a check, hey, look, some of it, not all of it, because I think they're only saying they're going to do like with a fourth or a third or something of the total money saved. This is the idea. You get a check. This is just like a little bit of it. Everybody gets this, and the rest we're going to use to pay down the debt. I think that could do good for building public support. It feels a little bit like bribing the public a little bit, but I mean that was the case with the
Stimmy
COVID
checks,
stimulus
baby,
money.
the stimmy check.
The stimmy checks,
stimmy,
right?
baby?
And this stimmy check is not made from money printing like the prior ones were. This is made from actual savings, actual tangible savings. So I think it would just be a much more responsible way to do it while maintaining that kind of like the political element of it. Do I agree with you that like paying down the debt would be the best idea? Just like if we're just looking at this from like a raw sort of like analytical perspective, sure. But there is that sort of pragmatic part of me that's thinking like, if people don't see this tangibly affect them, are they really going to like care to support it at all going forward?
Yeah, it's
probably not.
I agree. Like, and I think it's amazing though. Like, never underestimate the awesome power of propaganda and sort of institutions' ability to shape a narrative. But right now, most Americans are on board with, in my estimation, I know you can hardly trust polling, but it seems like most Americans are on board with the DOGE shit. The criticism of Trump, most of it's his big fucking mouth. Like, right?
And he has that.
Yeah, you got the Trump supporters. They're going to support Trump basically no matter what. And the Trump haters are going to hand. But he won the election. And a lot of the people that voted for him are like former Democrats. So what are they thinking? And I was reading about this today. It's like, most of them are like, yeah, the cutting the waste is good. But we don't like some of his tweets. We don't like some, but we still, that's why his approval numbers are like hitting all-time highs for him, which is incredible because baked in with him is such an hatred and visceral gut reaction. Like he's got a ceiling that's like worse than any other ceiling in history because there's 45% of this population that thinks he's the devil. So it's like, you're never going to convince them, right? So once he gets to about 55%, that's probably a ceiling. But that's incredible that he's at the highest number that he's ever been. And he's doing all this, what you would be led to believe if you're reading the New York Times or watching CNN, these radical fucking unhinged shit. He's deporting people. He's got people just going through the books at fucking the IRS. And yes, the American people say, great. And to watch the Democrats try to gaslight people as to why it's bad is fucking hilarious. It's just hilarious. It's like, and again, Connor last night. Connor, I have to re-listen, but what did he say? He was like, the bodies piling up under Trump, 2 million in places like Ghana from AIDS.
Oh, from lack of USA or whatever.
Already? Yeah. Holy shit, a 10-day freeze, really? Fuck, are you kidding me? Like, now I assume he meant estimate is to be, but it's like, I'm sorry. Like, that's the deal with USAID. Like, this is what I do if I want to be a corrupt asshole. I'd be like, all right, man, here's what we're going to do if I'm Trump. I'm like, fucking find people like Lactoid and Rob and the NRA and fucking Newsmax and all them. And we're going to fucking, the entire budget, all this shit, 95% is going to go to them just to kiss our ass, right? Just fucking people we like, 95%. And then the other 5%, we're going to fight transgender AIDS in Zimbabwe. Okay? And then when they say, well, this is fucking crazy. Why is Lactoid getting money? Oh, you want people to die of AIDS in Zimbabwe? Fuck you. And Congress approved that money. They approved that money, right? And so you can't just shut it down. You can't shut it down. That money's been approved. I mean, it's...
I was thinking about this. Real quick, I was thinking about this. Technically, wouldn't it be the case if instead of like freezing it, Trump just funneled the U.S. aid money into like right-wing organizations? Wouldn't the constitutional crisis argument, like even that position, that would just disappear, right?
Well,
because
here's my
the money's
question.
being spent now at that point.
I don't, and again, I'm someone who somewhat follows this. I think you are as well. Here's the legitimate question. Maybe other people that do politics will laugh at me for not knowing this. How is this money appropriated from Congress in the first place? My guess is it's something like this. You got these huge omnibus bills or these emergency resolutions or whatever, right? That are 1,400 pages that no one fucking reads, that everyone signs off on because it's like, oh, I got my little pork project. That's all I give a fuck about. Sign off on it. My guess is the way it reads would be something like this. $30 million for agencies to fight AIDS in Africa. But it doesn't say this specific agency at this specific time to be divvied out in this specific increment, right?
So it's kind of a split. So in these bills, there are certain line items that are very specifically funding certain things, so that like have to be funded.
Sure, I would guess.
And then, but then there is like a massive chunks that are discretionary in the sense that they have to go to like a certain goal, but what that goal, like how to accomplish that goal, is left up to the president, right? It's left up to the agency to actually run
right.
it.
And when it's left up to the president, it's left up to the bureaucrat. That's
right.
Because the president has no clue.
A good example of this is those Politico Plus subscriptions that were being paid for by the FDA.
Correct.
That was coming out of like a miscellaneous fund, right? The idea of like entirely like up to the discretion of the agency, essentially.
And so I would assume that's a lot of this money. And I use that exact example. So I was like, okay, if Trump's not allowed to freeze that money, then give it to Newsmax. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Right? That's it.
I was
give
thinking
it to
about
the NRA.
that. Like,
and then watch and see if the Democrats say,
could.
well, you could freeze it. That's what I would just be like, here's the ultimatum, right? We're going to take that money from Politico. It's fucking gone. And it's either that's going to fucking Ben Shapiro, or there's money going to fucking streamers. That's going to fucking The Crucible. That's going to Rob Noor. That's going to Lactoid and Fabian. That's where that money's going. Or we could freeze it. Your call. Right?
Did you see like all the what was it, like there was I don't remember the number, but it was like 60 something or like somewhere like decent amount of like quote independent news agencies around the world that were upset, and they were protesting the cutting of USA because without it they couldn't function.
Right.
And what that happens is like independent news agencies cease to be able to function if they're not getting funded by the U.S. government.
Yeah, independent from what?
Independent from what? That is
non-governmental organization that can't operate without government funding. Non-governmental? Yeah. Right. That's exactly. It's all word game. USAID itself is a word game. It's not aid. What is it, like Assistance for International Democracy? Isn't that what it stands for?
Yeah.
It's something like, but people hear that, they're like, oh, aid. We're aiding people. We're sending money to fight AIDS. We're sending money to fight poverty. That's good. We're feeding people. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say. And like, so let's say you keep those items. Yeah, we keep sending by the way, even if once you start to get in the details, it gets even more fucked up. Because even if you take the things that we could all, first off, if you're someone like me, you say, the government shouldn't be sending money to any aid group outside the fucking country anyways. I already am skeptical of programs that we would say, like, I don't like poverty. I don't like starvation, but I'm still skeptical of government programs in our country to fight starvation. It becomes incredibly worse when it's outside the country because, one, until everyone is taken care of comfortably in our country, our government has no right stealing money from us, the tax-paying citizen, to fucking help people around the world. Fuck that. Take care of your own first, right? Secondly, though, once you start to dig in, it's fucking insane. So, like, the averages of this are crazy. This is sort of, I was reading, maybe I'm full of shit, but this is what I was reading, and I checked it with like 2 or 3 sources. This is how something will work. You're in D.C., right? And you contact some of your fucking lawyer buddies, or, you draw up paperwork. And the paperwork is you come up with an idea. You're like, what is a project that we could work on? Oh, transgender people in the country of Chad. Okay? Then you go to the country of Chad and you find a couple of English speakers there. And you say, here's the deal. You're going to start an organization to push transgender issues here. And we're going to write a paper that says, yeah, transgender people are abused here and we need to open this up and blah, 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 blah. You're going to start this organization. Then we're going to apply for funding. Then they go and you start your organization in Chad that is the Chad Transgender Organization. In D.C., you start the Organization for Providing Support to the Chad Transgender. Then you write the paper, right? It gets put in a fucking miscellaneous fund after it's accepted as something like USAID. They send you $10 million. The DC people keep $9 million. They send $1 million to the fucking country of Chad. And then the company that just got created in Chad keeps 90% of that $1 million that got sent there and spends $100,000 on fighting for transgender issues. That's basically how it works. And that's before you even get to, are there government entities in the country of Chad that say, we're going to get our figures in that pie too. So it's like, that's a bad example when my audience is going to be like, fuck transgender. But let's say poverty. Let's say starvation. We can all agree, like, we don't want people starving in Chad.
True.
But even if your big heart says, yeah, we should fund that program, very little of it is actually going to fight starvation. It's going to pay salaries of nonprofit, non-governmental organizations. And you're paying all these fucking massive salaries to them. And then you go a step further where it's like, well, not only that, but you have people in the United States who are the politicians voting for it, that's family and friends are on the boards that are getting this money. Then they're not just funding fucking poverty, they're also funding things that are antithetical to what you believe in, like populism around the world. Or they're funding, my favorite Mike Ben's video that I've seen recently was, they're funding the Atlantic Council, who then puts on a seminar on how journalists can spot disinformation to flag it for censorship. And the first tweet that they put out is Trump saying, and I'm quoting, witch hunt. So they're training these 300 journalists. What type of disinformation is that? Oh, it's a fallacy of authority. Right, it's a fallacy of authority. And how would you flag that? Right? And it's like, so my tax dollars are going to fund my own censorship. Right? Yeah. The whole thing, it's such a fucking shell game.
I'll after this, I'll send you. Earlier today, I was like going through sources, and one was like an official source of the Ukrainian government, like the official website. And I was scrolling to the bottom, and I was reading the whole thing, right? And I scrolled to the bottom, and the very bottom left, USAID, little trademark right there. I'll send that to you.
That's great.
It's everywhere, right? Like there's so much shit this has been funding that people just weren't aware of. All these independent news agencies, all this shit, and it really is. You're right. Like, why would you want to support something that is has its hands in so many things, that's used as a front for the CIA and so many things, and in the cases of funding anti-populists, for example, something that's just overtly opposed to your political ideology.
Well, Connor, in that debate last night, I bring up the example of Poland. I'm like, National Endowment of Democracy puts out this thing.
Right.
Now, to be clear, that newsletter isn't evidence that they forced them. But our dollars are going, and they're I'm 99% sure there were dollars that went to the funding of judges, the funding of politicians in Poland to achieve this. But they're basically telling you, this would be our roadmap. This is what we think you have to do, right? And by the way, this is another thing that they do. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. All of the lamentations during the first Trump impeachment of the quid pro quo of Trump saying, if you want money, then you have to do this investigation. I shit you not, 3 Democratic senators also sent a letter to the Ukrainian government that was like, we send you all this money, and we hear that you might not cooperate with the investigation into Donald Trump. And that'd be a shame, because that seems to tinge of anti-democracy and cheering for corruption. So, wink, wink, you like that money you're getting, right? Now, how was that not a crime worthy of impeachment if the Trump thing was? Well, because Trump's guilty. Trump's a criminal. Of course they should cooperate in the investigation of Trump. That's the theory that's going on here. But that's the sort of shit that they do. It's like, well, we're not telling you have to do this, but we do send you $50 million. Just saying.
Right.
Just letting you know. And so, like, I'm talking to Connor, and like, to me, the example with Poland that's the most stark is they literally recommend your tax dollars are going to an organization that's telling Poland that they must throw in prison politicians that push for mail-in voting in 2020 because it would lead to obvious fraud. If that doesn't sum up our federal government in one fucking nice, neat bow, I don't know. Our tax dollars going to jail politicians that wanted mail-in voting, while at the exact same time they censored you on social media for complaining about it in this country. That's it. And like, you bring it up to Connor, and he's like, based. That's what he says. Based. Oh,
well, he wants you to pay for it, right? Though
I read 3 sentences on this Wikipedia article, and it says that the president that was there before, his party's really corrupt. So they packed the courts. So it's like, but you don't even know shit about that.